Today, I'd like to start first with Julien de Waal. He's the COO of Doggies in Town, and he's got a really interesting story from where they started and where they're headed. So, Julien, I will ask you to turn on your screen, your camera, and unmute yourself so I can give you the virtual floor.
Thank you, Christian. So let me share my screen. So firstly, thanks a lot for having me in this webinar. Super excited to be in this webinar, and also tell a little bit about the story of Doggies in Town. Just a bit about myself. I'm the CEO of Doggies in Town. In the last 12 years, I've built various startups from around the world. I worked for a startup accelerator where I helped 50 startups and entrepreneurs, hundreds of entrepreneurs, in building the idea from getting funded as well and scaling their business. And it's been an interesting journey because just a few years ago, just before COVID, my partner and I, we are 3 co-founders. We started Doggies in Town, and we went through quite an interesting journey because we had to go through COVID. And I'd like to share with you all the knowledge that we had, especially in the funding part of things, because that is by itself, fundraising by itself is quite a journey and a challenge. So, we secured funding during those times from investors from Saudi Arabia, from Egypt, from France, Spain, and the Netherlands. But it wasn't easy, and there was a lot of valuable insights that we gained, and that's what I would like to share with you guys. So the first point is the challenges we faced during COVID is the changing of priorities for investors during COVID. So what we saw is that the focus of many investors had shifted towards specific industries, and they knew that certain industry would be growing during COVID, such as health tech, which saw a huge boom in tech startups and investments. At the same time, gaming was going crazy in terms of investments as well, and startups being built. And the gaming industry really took off during COVID because a lot of people were staying at home as well and gaming more than ever. But that also took its toll on other industries, such as the tourism industry. Investments were not as interesting anymore because nobody was traveling anymore. Startups were even dying. It was sort of like a domino effect. And for us at Doggies in Town, it made it a very big challenge because, yes, we're in the pet industry, but of course, we're also catering to the hospitality industry. In short, if you are a dog-friendly hotel, restaurant, store, or business, at Doggies in Town, we offer a platform where you can register and offer your business services as being dog-friendly business. And this will be visible to our community of dog owners in the app. So we had direct ties to the hospitality industry, and that made it a very big challenge for us in securing funding. So lesson one here is it's important to keep in mind the macroeconomic and cultural conditions, whilst you're fundraising. Fun fact, the pet industry, believe it or not, is a recession-proof industry. It was booming during the recession in 2008. During COVID, contrary to what people thought, the pet industry was booming. A lot of people bought dogs during that time because they felt very lonely and they didn't want to be alone, so they bought a lot of dogs. And if they bought dogs, they would need to buy food and accessories. However, in our case, we are located in Spain, and investors in Spain, the pet industry is fairly unknown to them compared to maybe investors from other regions around the world. So we received many rejections in Spain, and based on feedback, we felt that the potential of the market wasn't fully understood. And so in the meantime, we were invited to different events like the World Business Angel Forum in Turkey, or 4 years from now in Barcelona, or Pitch at the Beach in Portugal. And we met with investors that were outside of Spain. we didn't lose hope, let's say, after the rejections, and we decided to pivot. And we realized that other regions of the globe knew the opportunity of this market, but also of our business. So we pivoted and we began focusing on talking to investors from other countries. And so when we opened a round, we reached out to these investors from abroad, and they were very interested. And of course, as some of you might know, we first needed a lead investor. And once we secured the lead investor, we did the due diligence, and that's what got the ball rolling, let's say. And we were super pumped. As founders, we were like, okay, we finally have the funding. Everybody's excited. And then we thought, let's do the paperwork and it'll be done in no time. Little did we know that then the bureaucracy during COVID was quite a hassle. And for us, it became a hustle. Spain's bureaucracy by itself needs a lot of progress. And because there's a lot of paperwork. So for investors, they need what is called a NIE, which is a ID number to invest in a startup in Spain. And so investors that we had outside of Spain, but were still in Europe, they could easily get it. But outside of Europe, so our investors from Saudi Arabia, from Egypt, they needed to physically go to a Spanish embassy in their countries, get a stamp, then send the paperwork to our attorney in Spain so he could go to the notary. Now, this was during COVID, where this was an offline process, a lot of things were closed. So for us, this really delayed our entire fundraising, our business by quite a few months. And for a startup, a delay can be the impact of game over, let's say, for your business. So luckily, we managed our funds very well within the company. And we ultimately received all the funding from investors from Saudi Arabia, Egypt, France, Spain, the Netherlands. But these are things to keep in mind when it comes to a recession or a COVID. There's a lot of paperwork, and this takes time as well to get it done the right way. So one thing that we're going to do with Doggies in Town is have a Delaware so that we can smoothen out the process for our upcoming fundraising. So that's about the challenges we faced during COVID and things to keep in mind. Then it's the strategies to secure funding. So there are first questions that you need to ask yourself, simple questions like, first, do you need funding? Can you make money and grow your business without any investors? So these are all very important questions to ask before even thinking about funding. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that I know that have made a tremendous success of their business, and they never had investors. They just found the right product market fit and grew it properly and didn't have necessarily investors. The second point is, what stage of funding are you at? Are you looking for, are you at the stage where you just want to grow your business? Is it to expand to other countries? There's a lot of factors that you need to keep in mind of what stage of funding you're at and how much you will ask. So when we secured our investments, the ones I just mentioned, that was a pre-seed round. The next round will be focused on a seed round. And that will be to allow us, the seed round will be to allow us to consolidate the position in Spain and expand to another market. So there are a lot of questions that you need to ask yourself before thinking, hey, I need to secure fundraising. And the last one that I had in mind is what type of funding do you want? Do you want funding from family, friends, or do you want from angels, or are you looking more maybe community-based fundraising, such as crowd equity or crowdfunding? These are all things that you need to keep in mind when you start your strategy in terms of growing your business. But let's say that you've decided to go the path where you want to talk with investors and get them on board your business because you want to scale faster and grow and expand to other countries. There's a lot of things to keep in mind even before reaching out to these investors. It's a bit like cooking. Before cooking, you need the mise en place. You need to do a lot of preparation beforehand. So from our side, some of the tips I would give is, in terms of building in advances, your team needs to be very solid. So your founder needs to be solid and experienced. If you're uh, running a project that is focused on blockchain technology, but you have no founders that are part of that have experience in blockchain, that could be a no-go for an investor directly. So you need to make sure that your team is very solid and has the experience to show to an investor, okay, I can scale my business, I can build my product and my business for the long haul. Also, if you're at the early stage of your startup, for example, make sure to already have a product built. Before going to when you go to an investor, depending on the industry, but usually an investor in these times will really want to see something that has been launched to the market, something functional, and a functional MVP that has been tried and tested by users. Even if it's a small portion of users, at least it's gone out to the market. Because very often entrepreneurs, and I speak for myself in my first startup, you want the perfect product and then you want to launch it to the market, which is a mistake. You should really focus on build, launch, learn, pivot, and adjust. So yeah, I think as well, when it comes to having not just a product built, you should show as well levels of traction, such as users, clients, and preferably revenue. But some industries, they will not necessarily request revenues. I've seen a lot of gaming companies receive a lot of funding because the concept was solid. There's a lot of potential in the idea by itself, but it's hasn't made any revenue. And then when it comes to reaching out to investors as well, it's beforehand, you need to prepare a very good and solid investor deck. And I'll enumerate all the points that I think have been very important for an investor to look at in an investor deck. And I've seen many. One of the key things is show a real pain, show a real problem, show the urgency, that there's a real need for this, a solution ASAP, and your solution is the solution. So that's the next point, is the solution. And then the product, show what the product looks like. The revenue model, the market size, the potential of the market, the competitors, how do you stand out compared to the competitors, and why you best to succeed versus the competition. The traction that you've built out, the ask, what are you asking from the investors and giving in return, and how you'll use that funding into a clear roadmap. So spread out how you're going to use that funding in a clear roadmap. And then the final points is the financials, and the most important is the team. The team for me is very important, and very often I hear from investors that's one of the key points. So the last thing in building in advance is thinking about standing out. You have to imagine investors are getting maybe 100 decks every single day. So the point here is stand out, and what we did on our side is we started sending out video teasers to investors so that they could get a tease of the product, but also the team. And that was a different way to stand out, and it generated a lot of traction with a lot of investors. So there's a lot of things to think about. And the last thing when it comes to building in advance is create a database, create an Excel document where you can track everything that you are doing when you're going to start reaching out to investors. So are they the right type of investor? Don't reach out to a Series A investor when you're at seed round, for example. There's a lot of information that you can find on the internet where you can have access to a lot of types of investors, where they've invested in. There's a lot of data that you can find on Crunchbase, on PitchBook, all these different places. And then I think when it comes to building in advance is actually pushing it and creating that momentum. So once you've prepared all of this mise en place, let's say, give yourself a timeline to launch and close the fundraising. This will put pressure on you, but also on investors to close the fundraising within a time frame. And then when it comes to investors that you were in touch with in the beginning, so maybe in week one you've reached out to them, and then a few weeks later you reach out, or a few months later you show them the progress that you've made, and that is usually a factor that can be quite powerful to an investor, and see that you're making quick progress and good progress. And then one of the last things is create noise and visibility to create this credibility. So be in the news, be on webinars, podcasts, articles, talk with influencers. You have to create this real momentum when you're reaching out to investors. And then going down to the last tips for entrepreneurs. This is not per se fundraising, but it's just general tips. I think one thing that has been really impactful is telling stories. What I mean by that is in your marketing, but also in your fundraising or whatever it is you're doing with your business, stories let us share information in a way that creates a real emotional connection. So it helps us understand information and makes the information memorable. And that's what you want. So we began telling stories, giving real life examples of frustrations of dog owners and businesses. And we realized that it had a real powerful growth in our business. So try to incorporate telling stories within your entire business. Also, in times of cultural or market shifts like we have right now, or what we had during COVID, it's important to listen. Listen to your users, listen to the data, to the noise, and pivot wherever it need be. The Doggies in Town was initially a dog owner dating app where you would match dog owners based on the dog's profiles, right? Because they say usually a dog is similar, the personality of a dog is similar to his owner. But we went out in the market without building anything. We just tested by doing surveys, talking to a lot of dog owners, but also doing online A/B testing of a landing page and seeing what people were clicking on the most. And we realized that they didn't care at all about dog owner or a dating app. So what we did is we prioritized what they did care about. And that's when we realized that the biggest frustration of dog owners is not knowing which places are dog friendly. And trust me, there are so many, it's just nobody knows about it. So that's what we're doing today. We're building the first dog friendly ecosystem. So listen to the data and pivot wherever it need be. And the last thing is, make sure that you have positive habits. An entrepreneur, it's already very hard because you're multitasking on so many levels. You're doing the marketing, you're building a landing page, you're building part of a product, you're fundraising. There's so many aspects of your life that are going to be very intense. So I would really recommend to any entrepreneur out there, all these things that you need to do as an entrepreneur, try to find the balance. And it's something that we do within our company, is really focused on doing activities where we can relax, whether it's meditation, sports, socialize. It really helps in our creativity, our happiness, and our productivity. So that's it. Thank you very much, guys.